Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So welcome to our continued reading in Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are going to do chapter 25 and 26 today. 25 is titled, in the Krishna book, Devastating Rainfall in Vrindavan. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it's called Lord Krishna Lifts Govardhan Hill. Two things happened. Okay, first we're going to chant Prabhupada, the Lord Chaitanya's chanting as he was walking in Bengal. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Lakshamam. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahimam. Chapter 25 of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devastating rainfall in Vrindavan. When Indra understood that the sacrifice, which was to be offered by the cowherdmen in Vrindavan, had been stopped by Krishna, he became angry, and he vented his anger upon the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were headed by Nanda Maharaj. Although Indra knew perfectly well that Krishna was personally protecting them. As the director of different kinds of clouds, Indra called for the Samvartika. This cloud is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. If you look up in the dictionary the word Samvartika, says it has to do with the dissolution of the universe. It's used for both world-destroying flood and world-destroying fire. And in this case, it's the, you can see it's water. This cloud is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. The Samvartika was ordered by Indra to go over Vrindavan and inundate the whole area with an extensive flood. Demonically, Indra thought himself to be the all-powerful Supreme Personality. If you look at the Sanskrit in the Bhagavatam, the word that's used here is Isha Mani. He thought himself to be the Isha. When demons become very powerful, they defy the Supreme Controller, the personality of Godhead. Indra, though not a demon, was puffed up by his material position, and he wanted to challenge the Supreme Controller. He thought himself, at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. Indra said, "Just see the impudence of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They are simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friend Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the demigods." Krishna has declared in the Bhagavad Gita that the worshippers of the demigods are not very intelligent. This is Bhagavad Gita 7:23. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Small intelligence here is alpa medasam. Alpa means meager. Alpa medasam. The verse goes on, "Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet." So that's the alpa medasam. He has also declared, he meaning Krishna, has also declared that one has to give up all kinds of demigod worship and simply concentrate on Krishna consciousness. Krishna is invoking the anger of Indra and later on chastising him is a clear indication to his devotees that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness have no need to worship any demigod, even if it is found that the demigod has become angry. Krishna gives his devotees all protection, and they should completely depend on his mercy. You don't have to take any other insurance policies out. Indra cursed the action of the inhabitants of Vrindavan and said, "By defying the authority of the demigods, the inhabitants of Vrindavan will suffer in material existence. Having neglected the sacrifice to the demigods, they cannot cross over the impediments of the ocean of material existence." Indra further declared, "These cowherd men in Vrindavan have neglected my authority on the advice of this talkative boy who is known as Krishna. He's nothing but a child. And by believing this child, they have enraged me." Thus he ordered the Samvartaka cloud to go and destroy the prosperity of Vrindavan. "The men of Vrindavan," said Indra, "have become too puffed up over their material opulence and are overconfident due to the presence of their tiny friend Krishna. He is simply talkative, childish, and unaware of the complete cosmic situation, although he is thinking himself very advanced in knowledge. Because they have taken Krishna so seriously, they must be punished. They should be destroyed with their cows." In this way, Indra ordered the Samvartaka cloud to go to Vrindavan and inundate the place. It is indicated here that in the villages or outside the towns, the inhabitants must depend upon the cows for their prosperity. When the cows are destroyed, the people are destitute of all kinds of opulences. When King Indra ordered the Samvartika and companion clouds, it wasn't just one, and companion clouds to go to Vrindavan, the clouds were afraid of doing this mischief. But King Indra assured them, "You go ahead. I will also go, riding on my elephant, accompanied by great storms, and I shall apply all my strength to punishing the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Ordered by King Indra, all the dangerous clouds appeared above Vrindavan and began to pour water incessantly with all their strength and power. There was constant lightning and thunder, blowing of severe wind, and incessant falling of rain. The rain seemed to fall like piercing, sharp arrows. By pouring water as thick as pillars without cessation, the clouds gradually filled all the lands in Vrindavan with water, and there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. The situation was very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble from the severe cold. Unable to find any other source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy rain, bowed down their heads, and taking their calves underneath their bodies, they approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan began to pray to Lord Krishna. Dear Krishna, they prayed, you are all-powerful, and you are very affectionate to your devotees. Now, please protect us, who have been much harassed by the angry Indra. Upon hearing their prayers, Krishna could understand that Indra, being bereft of his sacrificial honor, was pouring down rain that was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds, although all of this was out of season. Krishna understood that this was a deliberate exhibition of anger by Indra. He therefore concluded, this demigod, who thinks himself supreme, has shown his great power, but I shall answer him according to my position, and I shall teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the Supreme Lord over all, and I shall thus take away his false prestige, which has risen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and therefore it is not possible for them to forget my supremacy. But somehow or other, he has become puffed up with material power, and thus is now maddened. I shall act in such a way as to relieve him of this false prestige. I shall give protection to my pure devotees in Vrindavan, who are at present completely dependent on my mercy, and whom I have taken completely under my protection. I must save them by my mystic power. Thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Govardhan Hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Thus he exhibited his transcendental pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill. Lord Krishna then addressed his devotees. My dear brothers, my dear father, my dear inhabitants of Vrindavan, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Govardhan Hill, which I have just lifted. Do not be afraid of the hill and think that it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted from the heavy rain and strong wind. Therefore I have lifted this hill, which will protect you exactly like a huge umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you of your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals underneath this great umbrella. Being assured by Lord Krishna all the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath the great hill, along with their property and animals, and they all appeared to be safe. The inhabitants of Vrindavan and their animals remained there for 1 week, without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any other discomforts. They were simply astonished to see how Krishna was holding up the mountain with the little finger of his left hand. There, like that. Seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. He immediately called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. And the sky became completely cleared of all clouds, and there was sunrise again. The strong wind stopped. At that time, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known now as the lifter of Govardhan Hill, said, "My dear cowherd men, now you can leave and take your wives, children, cows, and valuables, because everything is ended. The inundation has gone down, along with the swelling waters of the river." All the men loaded their valuables on carts and slowly left with their cows and other paraphernalia. After they had cleared out everything, Lord Krishna very slowly replaced Govardhan Hill in exactly the same position it had been in before. When everything was done, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan approached Krishna with feelings of love and embraced him with great ecstasy. The gopis, being naturally very affectionate to Krishna, began to offer him yogurt mixed with their tears, and they poured incessant blessings upon him. Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda, and Balaram, who is the strongest of the strong, embraced Krishna one after another, and from spontaneous feelings of affection, blessed him over and over again. In the heavens, different demigods from different planetary systems, such as the Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, and Charanaloka, also began to show their complete satisfaction. They poured showers of flowers on the surface of the earth and sounded different conch shells. There was beating of drums, and being inspired by godly feelings, residents of Gandharvaloka began to play on their tamburas to please the Lord. After this incident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by his dear friends and the animals, returned to his home. As usual, the gopis began to chant the glorious pastimes of Lord Krishna with great feeling, for they were chanting from the heart. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 25th chapter of Krishna, devastating rainfall in Vrindavan. Chapter 26, Wonderful Krishna. Without understanding the intricacies of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and without knowing his uncommon spiritual opulences, the innocent cowherd boys and men of Vrindavan began to discuss his wonderful activities, which surpass the activities of all men. One of them said, "My dear friends, considering his wonderful activities, how is it possible that such an uncommon boy would come and live with us in Vrindavan? It is really not possible. Just imagine. He is now only 7 years old. How is it possible for him to lift Govardhan Hill in one hand and hold it up just as the king of elephants holds a lotus flower? To lift a lotus flower is the most insignificant thing for an elephant. And similarly, Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill without exertion. When he was simply a small baby and could not even see properly, he killed a great demon, Putana. While sucking her breast, he also sucked out her life air. Krishna killed the Putana demon exactly as eternal time kills a living creature in due course. When he was only 3 months old, he was sleeping underneath a hand-driven cart. Being hungry for his mother's breast, he began to cry and throw his legs upwards. And from the kicking of his small feet, the cart immediately broke apart and fell to pieces. When he was only 1 year old, he was carried away by the Trinavarta demon, disguised as a whirlwind. And although he was taken very high in the sky, he simply hung on the neck of the demon and forced him to fall from the sky and immediately die. Once, his mother, being disturbed by his stealing butter, tied him to a wooden mortar, and the child pulled it toward a pair of trees known as Yamala Arjuna and caused them to fall. Once, when he was engaged in tending the calves in the forest along with his elder brother Balaram, a demon named Bakasura appeared, and Krishna at once bifurcated the demon's beak. When the demon known as Vatsasura entered among the calves tended by Krishna with a desire to kill him, he immediately detected the demon, killed him, and threw him into a tree. When Krishna, along with his brother Balaram, entered the Talavan forest, the demon known as Dhenukasura, in the shape of an ass, attacked them and was immediately killed by Balaram, who caught his hind legs and threw him up in a palm tree. Although the Dhenukasura demon was assisted by his cohorts, also in the shape of asses, all were killed, and the Talavan forest was then opened for the use of the animals and inhabitants of Vrindavan. When Pralambasura entered amongst Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, Krishna caused him to be killed by Balaram. Thereafter, Krishna saved his friends and cows from a severe forest fire, and he chastised the Kaliya serpent in the lake of the Jamuna river and forced him to leave the vicinity of the Jamuna. He thereby made the water of the Jamuna poisonless. Another one of the friends of Nanda Maharaj said, "My dear Nanda, we do not know why we are so attracted by your son Krishna. We want to forget him, but this is impossible. Why are we so naturally affectionate toward him? Just imagine how wonderful it is. On the one hand, he is only a boy of 7 years. And on the other hand, there's a huge hill like Govardhan Hill, and he lifted it so easily. Oh, Nanda Maharaj, we are now in great doubt. Your son Krishna must be one of the demigods. He is not an ordinary boy. Maybe he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." On hearing the praises of the cowherd men in Vrindavan, King Nanda said, "My dear friends, in reply to you, I can simply present the statement of Gargamuni, so that your doubts may be cleared. Now, this is described. Uh, this is the name-giving ceremony of Krishna, which is in the 10th canto, chapter 8. Gargarishi performs this name-giving ceremony for Krishna and Balaram. And the verses here, 6 verses here, are exactly repeated from chapter 8. My dear friends, in reply to you, I can simply present the statement of Gargamuni so that your doubts may be cleared. When he came to perform the name-giving ceremony, he said that this boy descends in different periods of time in different colors, and that this time he's appeared in Vrindavan in a blackish color known as Krishna. But by the way, the word Krishna, strictly speaking in Sanskrit, doesn't mean black, it means dark blue. Kala is black, and Krishna is dark blue. And in the dictionary, there's an entry under Krishna, masculine gender, black, the color, or dark blue, which is often confounded with black by the Hindus. It says in the dictionary. So, but really it is dark blue. Previously, he had a white color, then a red color, then a yellow color. He also said that this boy was once the son of Vasudeva, and everyone who knows of his previous birth calls him Vasudeva. That's a way to make a son of Vasudeva is Vasudeva, your patronymic. Like the, yeah. Actually, he said that my son has many varieties of names according to his different qualities and activities. Gargacharya assured me that this boy would be all auspicious for my family and that he would be able to give transcendental, blissful pleasure to all the cowherd men and cows in Vrindavan. Even though we would be put into various kinds of difficulties, by the grace of this boy, we would be very easily freed from them. He also said that formerly, this boy saved the world from an unregulated condition, and he saved all honest men from the hands of the dishonest thieves. He also said that any fortunate man who becomes attached to this boy, Krishna, is never vanquished or defeated by his enemy. On the whole, he is exactly like Lord Vishnu, who always takes the side of the demigods and who are consequently never defeated by the demons. Gargacharya thus concluded that my child would grow to be exactly like Vishnu in transcendental beauty, qualification, activities, influence, and opulence. And so we should not be very astonished by his wonderful activities. After telling me this, Gargacharya returned home, and since then we have been continually seeing the wonderful activities of this child. According to the version of Gargacharya, I consider that he must be Narayana himself, or maybe a plenary portion of Narayana. When all the cowherd men had very attentively heard the statements of Gargacharya through Nanda Maharaj, they better appreciated the wonderful activities of Krishna and became very jubilant and satisfied. They began to praise Nanda Maharaj because by consulting him, their doubts about Krishna were cleared. they said, "Let Krishna, who is so kind, beautiful, and merciful, protect us." When angry Indra sent torrents of rain, accompanied by showers of ice blocks and high wind, Krishna immediately took compassion upon us and saved us and our families, cows, and valuable possessions by picking up Govardhan Hill just as a child picks up a mushroom. He saved us so wonderfully. May he continue to glance mercifully over us and our cows. May we live peacefully under the protection of wonderful Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 26th chapter of Krishna, Wonderful Krishna. Well, that's our reading for now.
Thank you very much. And now we'll open it up if anybody has any comments or questions or reflections of any sort, anything that struck out to you. You can, we're a small group here, so feel free to unmute yourself and just speak up if you like, or you can use the raise hand feature or type something into the chat box. If you're on Facebook, you can also type into the comment section there. And Sankarshana Prabhu says, I wonder why it took a week for Indra to desist from having the Samvartika clouds inundate Vrindavan.
He was persistent.
Hare Krishna, good.
Haribo.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. One thing I always like about this pastime is it really shows how kind Krishna is to all kinds of his devotees. Like, for example, so many people, personalities had previously come to Vrindavan trying to kill Krishna or kill Balaram, and Krishna just killed them, just on the spot. And here Indra comes and he's trying to kill everyone in Vrindavan, all the animals, all the people, everything. He's trying to destroy the whole place. And Krishna just lets him off, basically. He knows that he's his devotee, and he's just like relieving him of his pride without knocking his block off like he did everyone else. And I was thinking how kind Krishna is to his puffed up devotees, even.
Good point.
And the other thing that always makes me laugh about this, the devastating rainfall in Vrindavan chapter, is that the way it's presented, and I haven't gone in to see where this word comes from, but there's an adjective used to describe how Indra reacts to Krishna's mystic power. It says, seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck, yeah.
That's one of my favorite things too.
Of all the things to be, he was thunderstruck.
He's usually the one that strikes with thunder, but he got struck himself.
That reminds me of last year at Govardhan Puja when Satsrup Maharaj was retelling this story, and he made this comment as well, kind of quietly, and he said Indra was thunderstruck. It was so funny. Really comical. Thank you, Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
And Tosi Priya, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Gurudev, thank you very much for reading. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
I just wanted to say that I noticed from your reading that you have a way of reading that you're not dramatically reading, you're not changing your voice to sound like Indra or changing your voice. It's just a very slight change of inflection and tone, and yet it conveys who's speaking and the mood so nicely, and I really appreciate it. Sometimes people, it's more like style of over substance, you know, when they try to get dramatic with their reading, and your reading is very subtle, and yet you're always aware of who's speaking and what the change in mood is when the person is speaking, and I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm glad to make you happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Krishna.
Very true. Very true. Thank you, Tulsi Priya. Anybody else have any comments or reflections that they would like to share? I just wanted to add one thing as we're waiting is I really appreciated how in the chapter of the devastating rainfall, that Indra is accusing the cowherd men of being puffed up.
Yeah.
But it was like so classic, right? We see this right in
Yeah.
Krishna book itself. It's like, you're pointing at somebody else and really you're the one that's having the issue.
Prabhupada said that. I don't know if it's a comment that when you point your finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you,
Yeah, that seems to be a tendency with leaders that when they're guilty of some crime, they accuse other people of doing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind if we ever have in position of leadership, if we start accusing others, right?
Well, there's a certain prominent politician who's very famous for that in America.
Who should not be named. Great. Any other comments or questions?
If I may,
Please go ahead, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Shraddha Devi Mataji, thank you for your service. Maharaj, my obeisances, thank you for your reading. And I have 3 questions. The first one is related to chapter 25, devastating rainfall in Vrindavan, related to the following passage. It goes like this. Indra cursed the action of the inhabitants of Vrindavan and said, quote, by defying the authority of the demigods, the inhabitants of Vrindavan will suffer in material existence. Having neglected the sacrifice to the demigods, they cannot cross over the impediments of the ocean of material existence. End quote. So Maharaj, my question is a little difficult for me to build, but I will try my best. Let's imagine that this passage, in this passage, instead of the word Vrindavan, we would find here like planet Earth in the present context. I repeat the passage, by defying the authority of the demigods, the inhabitants of planet Earth, and I'm referring to our present days, will suffer in material existence. Maharaj, my question is it that I know that this was happening 5,000 years ago when Krishna was present on this planet. But is it that the relationship between the citizens of the universe, of our universe, and the demigods who are managing the universal affairs is still the same? Is it that the inhabitants of this universe, if they go on defying the authority of the demigods, they will suffer?
Yes.
Is it that it is happening right now?
Yes. Just look.
No, I need you to give me at least one practical example. Is it that it is visible that we are suffering? What kind of sufferings are being applied against us by the demigods right now? Give me one example at least.
California is on fire.
Yes, I saw it on the news. Yes.
Yeah, that's just one. The oceans are rising. The whole temperature of the earth is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Hurricanes are developing more and more and more. And so on and so on and so forth.
Tulsi Priya adds pandemic.
Pandemic, yeah, have you noticed?
Yes.
That's two. That's the obvious one. And that's not the only pandemic also, by the way. I mean, we thought we were going to conquer disease, but now we're, yeah, the things that we used as cures are causing more diseases. So that's what happens. So we really have to go back to serving. Well, if you serve Krishna, automatically all the demigods are being served, and they're just his. There's a lot of demigods, by the way, 330 million. So it's quite a crowd. They're like a nervous system of the cosmos, and they're all wired in. We don't know anything about how things are really working. But if Krishna is served, you'll see that everyone else becomes satisfied, the demigods, and everything will become working properly once again. That's our conviction.
Maharaj, I'm sorry if I am insisting, but I have a little note. Demigods are invisible. We cannot see them.
You can't.
Sorry?
You can't see them.
Yes, I can't see them. So how can I make the connection between the pandemic that it is happening right now and being an action of a demigod? I don't know his name. I cannot see him. For the general populace, for general people, it is difficult to understand that a demigod is causing this pandemic. They cannot see him. They do not know his name. Any help, please?
Well, you have to understand that because there's Krishna, who's the supreme person, that there are also other people who are working underneath him to run everything. We are trying to ourselves become the controllers of nature and trying to become ourselves the demigods. Without any control, we actually have our own God projects going.
Yes.
And the only way you're going to show people that the method of sacrifice, and remember, if you serve Krishna, it's like, giving food to the stomach, all this whole body, the senses becomes nourished. So similarly, by serving Krishna, all the demigods also become satisfied, and you will see that if we have the chance to do this, this will work.
Maharaj, one last thing related to this passage. Indra says, they cannot cross over the impediments of the ocean of material existence. What are these impediments?
Well, for example, birth, death, old age, and disease.
Yes,
Those
of
are
course.
impediments.
Yes,
all
yes,
things that baffle you in your happiness in the material world, those are impediments. And you cross over the ocean of material existence, then you go to the spiritual existence. People don't know how to get there from here. And so they become baffled and blocked in their attempts at transcendence.
Yes. One last note, if I may. So, in accordance with your answer, for me to explain to a person who is there saying, oh, I do not believe in demigods, I do not believe that this pandemic is caused by a demigod, what I could say to this person based on your answer is that demigods exist. They are serving Krishna, and when they are not pleased, they become angry and they punish us. So this pandemic right now is a symptom of a certain demigod or a team of demigods being displeased with the way we live in this universe, because there are rules and regulations for human beings to be obeyed in order to please the demigods, but we are not doing that. So the demigod has the right to, has the duty in order to serve Krishna to punish us, or with a pandemic, or with the fires in California, etc., etc. Am I right?
Partially. Sometimes just from our own neglect, things don't happen properly. The demigods are not that much involved in doing something actively, but just because we are neglectful, we suffer from the consequences of carelessness and stupidity. And so not everything is directly what they're doing, but yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much. I have two more questions,
But
but
we
maybe
have
the
some
time is
other.
already
Yeah,
over.
when we let some others speak. Thank you so much, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And Tulsi
You're
Priya
welcome.
has her hand up, so please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Krishna. I'm going to offer a comment, and I just would like to know if I'm on the right track or if I'm off the rails. When I think about the demigods, perhaps in relation to the pandemic or the fires or anything else that may be going on, I'm not remembering exactly where I heard this. My husband has mentioned it, and I think he got it from you, about the demigods sort of being like the nervous system of the universe. And sometimes I think about, there's obviously they're persons and there's intelligence, but also I feel like maybe things are sort of going on in an automatic way, the way the functions of the body go on automatically. Like I personally am not thinking, okay, now my heart is going to beat, or now, my nerves are going to fire and I'm going to lift my right hand up or anything like that. But there's intelligence in all of those functions that is guided by super soul and is maybe mediated by my own brain. I don't claim to know how these things work, but I feel like as human beings, when we're not in balance, when we're not operating according to the Vedic system, or we're not surrendered to Krishna and thus, able to, what's the word I'm trying to think of, sidetrack or not sidetrack, we don't have to adhere so strictly to the Vedic regulations. That there's imbalance, and that imbalance is like when you have imbalance in your body, and so things start to go wonky, because that's how the intelligence of the body tries to adjust things. So people, don't like the fires, but it's a fact that the fires are good for the environment. It's just not good for the people who are living out of balance with the environment. So is that an okay way to understand how the demigods are operating? Or are we, am I supposed to think that like there's a demigod somewhere in a control room with a switch saying fire, hail, pandemic, or whatever?
Oh, I think you got the right way of understanding it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tulsi Priya. And Tulsi Priya previously made a comment about, the things going on in this world. And she said, we're just so unfortunate. We think that this is normal life. And it's a good comment.
By the way, you have to remember that the whole Bhagavatam presents a kind of global warfare between the devas and the daityas, the demigods and the demons, the gods and the anti-gods. So there are demons too who try to take over and control things and run things too, and they are there, and they do their thing, and they control people, and so that's the other thing. And sometimes the demons become very, very strong, and they're also like supernatural. We would call them supernatural. It's actually not super, but because we can't see them by the normal methods that we look around. Because see, the idea that the universe has people in control of it. See, we want to be the controllers of the universe, so we don't want anybody in the way. We just do our thing. And in that way, we become the enjoyers and controllers. And there aren't any, no God or gods in the way to do anything like this. But there are, really, you have to think, to me, to think of the devas as the nervous system, that the cosmic nervous system. And subtle means that it's not perceivable to us. But also you may notice that subtler things are more powerful than gross things. And so we're not actually aware of what's really going on.
Sankarsana Prabhu, he says, I don't know the source of this reference, but I heard while Krishna was holding up Govardhan Hill, he glanced over at Radharani and trembled, and the hill shook ever so slightly. Only Balaram understood what was going on. I think I've heard that before too.
I have heard it, yes. I don't know where it comes from.
And Sankarshan Prabhu also says, I've heard people get collective karma for their misdeeds, such as animal slaughter. And so there are pandemics, hurricanes, wars, etc., which gives reactions to punish people on a large scale.
Yeah, true.
And then Shaila Vasini, Devi Dasi, she says, my humble obeisances, Gurudev, given that the demigods are mortal, is it possible for us to become demigods?
Yeah, it's possible, but it's mortal. You know, you have a good time, you live longer, you have powers, but then you die. So the demigods are jivas. They're not on the category of divinity itself. They're the bureaucracy of the universe that runs so many things. There's a deva in charge of eyesight, in charge of the sense of touch, and every one of your senses is being controlled right now by various devas. I can speak now, I can sit up, I have a sense of balance. There's devas who are making sure all of that is in working order as much as possible.
Thank you. And Nindita has a question or a comment. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Very good, Gurudev. Thank you very much for the wonderful reading. So nice to hear you read Krishna book. I was thinking of the part when Indra asked the Samarthaka clouds to inundate Vrindavan with the rainfall, and the clouds were actually hesitant. They were fearful, and then it actually took Indra to reassure them that he's going to back them up. So I was thinking how when we are proud, even others can see that our actions are not very intelligent, but we cannot see it ourselves. Just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's good to have good advice. Huh? That we take.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? And when you see somebody going off their rails, but they think they're so in the right mood, and it's like almost painful to watch it.
It's not stated explicitly in the Bhagavatam, but I can just imagine that Indra's wife was saying, "This is not a good idea."
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Huh? Are you sure you?
Oh, very good. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the hour. And just a few comments on Facebook. Shaila Vasini Devidasi says, thank you, with a prayer hands emoticon. And she also had said Hare Krishna earlier. And we had a very exalted soul on this class today. Vaisheshika Prabhu was tuning in as well and said Hare Krishna. So our obeisances to you, Vaisheshika Prabhu. And obeisances to everybody. Thank you all for coming.
Don't forget, tune in again for prayers by Indra, the King of Heaven. See how he was affected all of this, right?
Next week.
Uh-huh.
And of course, we'll have Sunday's Bhagavatam class on the first canto at 3 o'clock Eastern time.